I can hear the echoes of their voices. They shouldn't be here. Not after what happened. But every whisper over the comms, every footstep reverberating through the ship's metal corridors, tells me otherwise. I saw them die, one by one, torn apart by something we couldn't see, something that didn't belong to this world. So why do I still hear them? My breath is ragged. My heartbeat pounds in my own head, muffled by the helmet. The red light in the control room blinks slowly, like a dying pulse. Everything should be dead, but the ship is alive, and I'm not the one flying it. I should have died with them. Maybe I did. Maybe I'm just an echo now, just another voice whispering inside this thing that's taking us back home, back to Earth. The USS Horizon hovered in orbit around HD 937b, a massive blue-green planet shrouded in thick atmospheric clouds. From space, it looked serene, almost inviting, but the crew knew that appearances rarely reflected the truth. On paper, the mission was simple: conduct a detailed surface analysis to assess the planet's viability for future human colonization. Standard protocol required a reconnaissance team to land, collect samples, and analyze atmospheric data. So far, everything had gone smoothly. Commander Elise Carter, a seasoned explorer, led the mission. With her were Dr. Victor Hahn, a xenobiologist, and systems engineer Alan Rhodes. The three had set foot on solid ground, surrounded by an endless expanse of luminescent vegetation. No visible fauna, no signs of intelligent life, just an oppressive silence and the occasional spectral shimmer across the bluish leaves. Back on the ship, the science team analyzed the collected samples while technicians monitored unusual energy readings from the planet's surface. Small pulses, too weak to be threatening, but strange enough to warrant curiosity. Elise studied the graphs on the control panel, her brow furrowed. The pattern of the pulses seemed almost rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Then, the ship's lights flickered. Just for a second. A technical glitch? Alan was about to check the systems when Dr. Hahn's communicator crackled with interference. His face went pale as he heard something impossible on the other end. It was his own voice. The silence that filled the command cabin was almost as unsettling as what Elise had just heard. The voice on the communicator, identical Hahn's, kept repeating fragmented words, as if struggling to form coherent sentences. System analysis. No, not me. I'm here. Hahn stared at the device in his hand, as if he were holding something alien. His wide eyes reflected the growing panic spreading through the ship. Is this interference? A recorded transmission? Alan asked. Try to cling to logic in the face of the impossible. Elise stepped forward. Hahn, did you say any of those words? He only shook his head, lips slightly parted, unable to form a response. The commander didn't have time to press further. The lights flickered again, this time accompanied by a faint, almost imperceptible sound. A low-frequency hum, like a distant vibration. On the control panel, the energy pulses from the planet's surface had intensified. What had been erratic was now steady, synchronized, as if something was waking up. Then came the first failure. In the medical bay, Science Officer Maya Torres was found collapsed beside her workstation. Her eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling, her lips moving in unintelligible whispers. Alan and Elise rushed to her side, but the moment he reached out to touch her, she let out an inhuman scream, her body convulsing violently before going completely still. On the monitor beside her, her brain waves were in total disarray. Her neural activity is completely erratic, Hahn muttered, scanning the data. This isn't just a seizure. It's like something is interfering with her. Elise didn't want to admit it, but the idea was becoming impossible to ignore. The planet wasn't empty. Something down there was aware of them. Something was watching them. Then Maya's eyes snapped open. But it wasn't her. Her pitch-black gaze locked onto Elise. In a voice layered with multiple tones at once, she whispered, "Why did you crawl inside my skin?" The silence that followed lasted only a few seconds, but to Elise, it felt like an eternity. The thing inside Maya watched them like a predator toying with its prey. Its artificial smile remained frozen in place, while its pitch-black eyes reflected the cold infirmary lights. "You brought my voice here," it said, but this time its mouth barely moved. The voice echoed from everywhere at once. Elise felt the crushing weight of terror settle on her shoulders. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere to go. The ship was sealed in space, and the planet below had already shown its control over the environment. "Maya, can you hear me?" Han asked, his voice hesitant. The creature, if it could still be called Maya, blinked slowly. The smile vanished. "Maya," it repeated, testing the name on its tongue. Then it tilted its head. "Am I Maya?" It seemed to contemplate the question, as if experiencing the concept of identity for the first time. Its body swayed slightly forward, unsteady, as if unfamiliar with the ship's artificial gravity. Elise exchanged a quick glance with Han and Alan. They needed a plan. They needed to contain this. Then Alan gasped. The sound was sudden, a dry, choking noise, like he was struggling to breathe. His fingers pressed against the sides of his head, his breath shallow and erratic. His chest heaved violently. Elise took a cautious step forward. He shook his head, eyes squeezed shut as if fighting something off. Then he froze. Slowly, Alan lifted his gaze. His eyes were completely black. Han took an involuntary step back. No. Elise felt her stomach drop. The entity wasn't just controlling Maya. It was spreading. Alan blinked a few times, adjusting to his new vision, as if seeing the world for the first time. Then his face twisted in horror, and for a brief, fleeting moment, the old Alan was back. "Get me out," he pleaded, his voice trembling with pure desperation. "Get me out of my head." But it was too late. The expression on Alan's face shifted abruptly, like a switch had been flipped. His shoulders relaxed. And then he smiled. Now there were two of them. The ship's alarms blared. The USS Horizon's AI had detected what the crew was only beginning to understand. Intrusion detected. Quarantine protocol activated. Elise rushed to the panel, trying to override the ship's lockdown, but the screens were flooded with static and unreadable code. Then, the voice of the system's operator crackled through the comms, thick with absolute panic. "Commander, we're picking up a massive energy spike from the surface. Something is... Oh my God! Something is coming up." Elise tried to respond, but the signal cut out. A tremor rippled through the ship, not a physical one, but something deeper, a sensory quake, like a shock wave sweeping through every corridor, every station of the USS Horizon. And then the screaming began. The command center's feed flickered back for an instant, and what Elise saw made her heart stop. The rest of the crew, scientists, engineers, operators, stood completely still, their eyes swallowed by darkness. They whispered nonsense, fragmented sentences pulled from past conversations. The entity wasn't just taking their bodies. It was absorbing them, their thoughts, their memories. Han grabbed Elise's arm. "We need to get out. Now!" But there was no way out. The lights failed completely, plunging the infirmary into darkness. Then, the emergency backup activated, bathing the room in a dim red glow, revealing something terrifying. Maya and Alan had stepped closer, and then they spoke in unison. "Why did you crawl inside my skin?" The air inside the USS Horizon thickened, charged with something Elise couldn't name. A presence, a pressure, invisible yet suffocating, like an insect trapped under glass. Maya and Alan were there, but they weren't them anymore. Something else was inside them, something vast, something unknowable. "Why did you crawl inside my skin?" Their voices overlapped, an eerie chorus reverberating through the infirmary's confined space. Elise's pulse pounded in her ears. Han stood frozen beside her, caught between terror and disbelief. She opened her mouth to say something, anything, to break the moment, but she never got the chance. The floor trembled, not from impact, but from something deeper, as if the ship itself was shifting at its core. The lights flickered erratically, alarms wailing through the corridors. Then Elise realized something. There were no more footsteps, no more screams, no more human voices. The entire crew had been taken. "Han," she whispered, a rising dread tightening around her throat like a noose. "We're alone." But Han didn't answer. She turned to him, only to see him standing eerily still, eyes wide. Pitch black. No. The world tilted around her, the artificial gravity flickering under an unseen force. She stumbled back, panic clawing up her spine. The ship was no longer theirs. The USS Horizon was alive. The entity hadn't just taken the crew, it had spread through the ship itself. The flickering lights blinked like opening and closing eyes. The panels displayed alien symbols rearranging into a language Elise couldn't comprehend. The ship was thinking, and then a foreign thought echoed in her mind, a thought that wasn't her own. I am the ship now. Elise squeezed her eyes shut, resisting the presence trying to invade her consciousness. She felt something pressing against her mind, pulling her toward a vast darkness where whispers coiled and memories unraveled. No, she wouldn't let it take her. With a final surge of will, she forced her legs to move, sprinting to the nearest control panel. Her fingers flew over the interface, desperately trying to regain human control over the USS Horizon. Nothing. The system was compromised. A sound filled the air, distorted, wrong. Laughter, but not human. A cacophony of voices layered on top of one another, twisting through the ship's speakers. And then, the final revelation appeared. The main display flickered back to life, only to show a single message. Trajectory altered. Destination, Earth. Elise's breath caught in her throat. The entity didn't just want them. It wanted a new home. It wanted an entire world. The USS Horizon was already on its way, and Elise, alone at the heart of the ship, knew it was too late to stop it.